Hey guys, just a quick message from Alspatter to say happy May the 4th and a big thank you to those who have continued to support our podcast series and also those who have liked and get involved with the posts on our Light the Saber Facebook page. So enjoy the festivities, and as a small thank you, we are putting out not one but two episodes of the podcast this May the 4th, which very happily did fall on one of our Friday upload days. So may the force be with you, have a fantastic day, and enjoy.
For centuries, Alderaan stood as a beacon of hope in the Republic. The Empire came.
I have chosen to test this station's destructive power on your home planet of Alderaan.
Peace while you suffer. The Emperor drowns you in black waters.
He wants me to be Darth Revan again. Serve him as I did centuries ago. He made me a Sith Lord and named me Darth Revan.
The Force does not control you. You saved humanity using something you thought was important. But your motives are still aligned with the Jedi Code.
To arms, men! Defend the throne!
Anakin Skywalker was weak. I destroyed him. He was weak and foolish like his father. So I destroyed him.
Master Windu, you have fought gallantly. Worthy of recognition in the archives of the Jedi. It is finished.
To them it is.
I have been waiting for you. Is it true that he is the chosen one?
It's Alex,
It's Harrison.
and welcome back to State of the Galaxy.
What a state it is.
Yeah, what a state it is. Today we're going to be fixating on some of the stuff from the Old Republic. You've got something that you want to talk about as well. So let's dive into some of the Old Republic stuff. I'm going to go to some of the stuff we brought up on the Light of the Saber Facebook page, which is the Dreadmasters. Did you get an opportunity to read the stuff that I read?
They're
about?
terrifyingly dreadful.
Yeah. So
Dark side, man.
it's comprised of 6 humanoid Sith Lords that were in favour of the Emperor during the time. They gained their name because of the studies that they did with Sith artifacts that were known as phobics or phobies, and they what they gave them the power to do was to go into battle meditation and then use images to traumatize and terrify the people that they targeted. So I think something that obviously I love looking into Star Wars, because if we didn't, then we wouldn't do this series.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I find a certain amount of sadness in doing it, because it's like Disney has all of this stuff at their disposal. They could resurrect any of this at any time. It doesn't need to be the same story.
I mean, they're literally a needle in a haystack amount of content that they're using.
Exactly. But they refuse to resurrect as much as they could, and they insist on making new stuff. Because as far as most of Star Wars fans are, they probably very few of them actually know about the Dreadmasters. So it would all still be new to them, but at the same time it's stuff that has worked in the past. So why not try and bring it back, or try and play off something similar to it?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just absolutely crazy the amount, isn't it, of powers and stuff and
Yeah, so
knowledge,
they...
characters.
So the Dreadmasters, like I say, they're able to use something called battle meditation, which has a lot of different usages. So theirs was mainly their use of terrifying imagery and ideas, and then implanting it into the minds of their targets. And they were able to take down entire fleets just with this power. But battle meditation does have various other forms. It allows people to manipulate the battle. It allows people to boost the morale of their particular troops, so that then they're able to be victorious. I've sometimes always thought of it as a rather kind of or a rather kind of out of the way form of fighting, and therefore not as
respected. But now I'm looking at it and it's like this is far more devastating. You don't have to be in battle with a sword, one-on-one kind of fighting. You can be locked away somewhere else and be doing even more damage.
Morale destruction is quite a good factor to use.
It is. A massive army. For things like propaganda, obviously in the real world, but then
I mean, terror works.
It does, especially in the heat of the moment. At the very kind of first look at it, you obviously your mind, for most people, they start to rationalise it and understand it and understand what the lies are. But at the first kind of viewing of it, your mind wanders, and that's when you get caught off guard. But they so the Dreadmasters were also kept on the move constantly, because as they were so powerful, it was presumed, and quite rightly so, that the Jedi and the Republic would target them, so keeping them on the move made them harder to find.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a clever plan.
It is a clever plan. So something else that I wanted to bring up is, and I'm trying to remember, I think it was very similar to, well, there was the scene that I pictured in my mind when I read this, was, I'm guessing you've seen, you have Robbie Downey Jr.'s Sherlock. So when they've got, I can't remember the name of the magician or the conjurer in that film, but the guy who uses magic in quotation marks in order to terrorise not only his own people but also most of London. He when he's put in the cell, people start to react badly, and like there's a policeman who collapses. Exactly the same thing happens when the Dreadmasters were finally captured and they were put in an area that was believed to be able to hold them, and for the most part it was. Everyone who was in a quarter-mile radius of them died very shortly after. So
was that like a supreme power of the dark side?
Well, I don't know, because Vader, it depends on how powerful you believe him to be. Because Vader, the only people that ever died because of him were people that he targeted. I don't know whether these people who died in the cell were actually targeted by the Dreadmasters, or whether it was just because they were... I'd like to think it's just because they were in their presence that they suffered that kind of fate. I don't think the Dreadmasters would just target random prisoners. I don't think that's how they work.
What's it going to achieve either?
Exactly. So they, if you can kill them, then why not just kill the guards and things like that, which they probably attempted to do anyway. But they, I'd like to think it was just because they were in close proximity with these incredibly powerful, force-sensitive beings, so something that I raised as part of the post was, and it was an interesting thing that was brought up in the entry that I found anyway, was that the Republic actually lied to its people, and they said that the Dreadmasters were actually killed in a particular campaign, when in fact they were in prison because they believed them to be too valuable to destroy. And the question that I put up is, what would you do in that situation? Would you destroy them, or would you try and harness their abilities, or at least just keep them so you can interrogate them? I know I specified that interrogation doesn't work, but at the same time, there's always hope that one day they'll just kind of crack.
I imagine if you try and use them, eventually they'll twist it and escape anyway.
Yeah, and I would always have to fear that nothing that I see from that point on is real.
And that whole radius power where it's just affecting everyone is...
Yeah.
Making it really difficult.
Yeah, so would you destroy them then? Okay, I would just keep them in confinement, like far away.
I'd maybe keep them in confinement in separate places.
But they also spread that lie because if the Sith Emperor caught wind that they were still alive, then he would probably instigate some kind of rescue mission in order to get them back. So to hear that they were dead, obviously, why would he go and retrieve their corpses? He wouldn't.
That's why he needs spies.
He's not that sentimental.
No.
So, but they were, I'm guessing that's probably what happened. The spies found out that they were alive, and that's why they were, or there was a rescue mission that was instigated but failed, and then they were captured by another group. But then that's something that I'll elaborate on with post number 2 whenever that goes up. because this is the first post that I've done as a two-parter, and I know it kind of seems like I'm splitting the viewership, so it's like, oh, now I get double the viewers. But also there is actually a natural break within their career, so they do change a little bit after that, so it makes sense to have these two kind of perspectives where you've got them under leadership, and maybe the second time, maybe they're not. They're on their own kind of terms.
Oh, like the Power Rangers gone rogue.
Well, I'd like to think that they're slightly cooler than the Power Rangers, to be fair. But again, it's something that has added to my love for the original Star Wars canon, because you've now got things like Darth. Well, when I say you've now got things, so now things that I've discovered, like things like Darth Vader and still stuff with Revan and Nihilus, and then stuff with Bane. The
Sith we deserve.
Yeah.
Not the ones we got.
No. And I've been, because you're still yet to see The Last Jedi again, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've now rewatched it 3 or 4 times on DVD since its DVD release. And I'm getting closer to being able to place it on lineup, but it's still tricky.
It's like 7th, isn't it? Below Phantom.
I don't know, because there's still an awful lot in that film that I like. And once you put stuff aside, then it's easier to see the bits that are likeable.
Mm.
But at the same time, you're right, there's still a lot of garbage.
Well, it's in the top 9, isn't it? Rogue One included, so...
Yeah, but that's not leaving much groundwork.
When Solo comes out, it'll be a top 10 then.
Yeah. And as we're recording this, it is exactly a month until Solo comes out.
Yeah, buddy!
So, I am absolutely looking forward to that film, and I am still in the belief that these Star Wars stories are going to be better than the core films that we're getting at the moment. I don't know how you're feeling about that.
I like the look of Solo, it looks cool, but I don't know if it'll beat the films.
I mean, Rogue One beat Episode 7 for you, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. I really like Rogue One.
Yeah, me too.
Weird characters, cool battles.
Obviously, there are always going to be problems with films, and I understand where people are coming from, where they say the first and second act are slow, but it's character building.
Rogue One was cool because there wasn't a lot of Force use.
No, it was nice something. It was something a bit different, but at the same time, they still gave us Force lovers the thing that we wanted to see, which was obviously Vader at the end, and then the little hints with Director Krennic and things like that.
Be careful,
on your aspirations. So long as they still cater for people like that, then I think that all people should find at least one thing that they like about that film.
It's a fresh one if you step out of line again.
I don't. Did you say that you found someone that actually really hated Rogue One?
Yeah, my cousin despises it.
Oh.
Thinks it shouldn't have existed.
Maybe we need to get them on the podcast at one point, or at least get a quote from them to say, because you can't. I'm sorry, but I don't really respect the opinions of people who say that they don't like something just because they don't like it.
Just because it shouldn't have existed doesn't mean it's not cool.
They need to have more of a reason than that. Because you can argue, yes, that these Star Wars stories shouldn't exist because it is a money-grabbing thing, and in some cases it is. But at the same time, not only are they more loved by Star Wars fans currently, but they're also expanding on the universe that we love, and we do deserve answers now. And one of the answers, because now Disney has revamped the canon, I know we originally did have answers, but now we need those answers again in different form, of how the Death Star plans were stolen, and what Han Solo's career was like before Episode 4, and what Kenobi went through during the gap between Episodes 3 and 4.
Oh, and a sneaky hint from Rogue One into Star Wars 8 with the hyperspace tracking as well.
Yeah, I did like the fact that was thrown in there, and thank you for pointing that out.
Cleverly snuck in.
It was, and it's more lore building to show that there was a connection, and that the Empire
Obviously developed it over the time in between.
They developed it, and then the First Order perfected it. And yeah, because I know that there are certain things about the Star Wars universe that you and I disagree on, but I don't think that we're at polar opposites. I think there is a lot that we both enjoy.
We're like contested nations, like neighbours.
Yeah.
Wanting the next country in between.
But we need to find someone who is at the kind of polar opposite. like your cousin, who hates Rogue One, we're not going to sit them down and completely destroy them because everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But at the same time, I want to know why people dislike that film. And I don't know anyone who actually actively hates Episode 8. I know a lot of people who are unsure about it, me included, and also people who love it. But at the same time, I'd like to see that kind of a completely opposite viewpoint and see what they have to say. Because I'd like to think that I'm able to give a fairly balanced opinion and I'm able to explain my thoughts. Like with Episode 2, God knows I have to justify my love for that film. But I'm able to do it, and I'm able to bring up points, and most people, Robert not included, they say, okay, yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from. It's not going to change where the film lies in my lineup. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to make you see that you can't write off an entire film just because it has these really bad points that scare. There is always going to be a good part of a film, and especially Star Wars, because for people who don't care about plot development and people who don't care about all the philosophical stuff, which I know I always dive into and I shouldn't do so much, Geonosis was still a cool battle.
Geonosis was not an inside job.
and there were still various, like the Coruscant chase, that was cool, and stuff like that. So
and the fight on Toboka City was cool.
Yeah, so we can't discard these films for being absolutely terrible outright.
I mean, it's Star Wars, isn't it? Everyone's got to make their own choice.
They do, yeah. So. And I think that's what makes it such an interesting fan base, because there was a podcast that I was watching, I think it was the Cancelled Forcecast, and one of them said that they actually preferred the books to even the original trilogy. That was the stuff that they loved. And to be fair, some of the original books, I can absolutely see where they're coming from. I'm not of the same thought process, but some of them are very good. Shadows of the Empire and things like that. So I can absolutely understand these different viewpoints. It's just it would be interesting to have someone on so we can actually hear it from their mouths. I just don't know someone kind of like who doesn't have the same kind of argument as your cousin, where it's like, I don't like it because I don't like it. We need more than this.
Didn't need to exist.
Like this whole new Star Wars trilogy didn't need to exist. I'm still in the category of saying that I would have preferred it had it not existed, because we still had all the books and the games, and Star Wars fans could then branch out and ingest all of this. But at the same time, I'm not completely bummed out by the fact that it does exist. I wasn't fussed either way. And I know loads of people were sitting there when I said that first time. It's like, yeah, your perspective will change. For the first time ever in my life, my perspective hasn't changed.
Come on, Alex. See through the lies of the Jedi.
I still don't really care. Like, if a Star Weird came into my room while I was sleeping and said, I'm going to erase the whole of like Rogue One and everything, and you're going to be the only one that knows about it, and no one else will ever talk about it ever again. Episode 7 and 8 will be gone. There'll be no other Star Wars films. I'd be like, meh, because I loved Star Wars as it was, and I could go in and read the books and expand my knowledge that way.
I mean, your PS4's got Darth Vader on it for crying.
It does. So I don't get me wrong. I don't hate Star Wars, and I don't hate what they're doing at the moment. But at the same time, I wasn't begging for it.
Don't hate the player, Alex. You just hate the game.
But so before I completely bludgeon myself to death and make people think that I hate Star Wars, which by the way I don't. Let's
do a podcast.
Let's go into the category that you wanted to bring up.
Right, it's a groundbreaking category.
Okay, go for it.
Is it possible?
Yes.
For force powers to go extinct?
Yes.
Like when Palpatine dies, no one uses lightning in the films since, and I presume no one else does in the new canon either.
Yeah, Snoke does.
When does he use lightning?
He uses lightning against Kylo. You know when Snoke's yelling at him, "You're beaten by a girl who never used a lightsaber. You failed!" And he does like the staff bounce into the ground, and he sends out a little bolt of lightning that sends
that's like a little bolt.
I know, but he's probably was capable of far more. He probably has
limited
than that.
power.
Exactly. So.
Okay, other powers then. Force choke. Don't see anyone really use that other than Snoke. That's a push. That's a push at most.
Okay, but it's a dark side ability, so you would only ever see Darksiders using it.
Oh yeah. Or like mind tricks. Don't really see that used again.
Yeah, but again, you
Other
need to
than
you need to
crappy
be weak. You need to
stormtroopers.
be weak-minded to be able to have that be of any kind of effect.
I mean, where's the lightsaber throw at? No one uses that anymore.
When was the last time we saw that?
Ray and Snoke doesn't count. We in the games and stuff. And
Yeah,
I
well,
think
we never saw it in
happens
the films. Did we?
I don't remember.
I don't think we did.
Brain block. I don't know. Either way.
No, I don't think we
Do
did.
you agree that it's possible for powers to become extinct or not?
I believe.
Microphone's here now.
I know that from original canon, it is absolutely possible for the Force itself to become extinct in a certain proximity. So, do you remember? Do you know? I think I'm going to teach you a bit about the original Sith Emperor. So, do you know who he was referred to as? His name was Vitiate, and during his early career, as I understand it, he and a group of Sith teamed up together, and it was just a ritual. It was just like it was exactly like the Dreadmasters. They did it because they could. They targeted a planet, and they, with their combined powers, used the Force to strip it of all of its life, including the living Force. So if any Force user was to go there, they not only wouldn't be able to use the Force, but they would feel physically ill, because obviously the Force, a lot of Force beings rely on it quite heavily. So yeah, I believe it's absolutely possible. What I think you're asking me is because like the core Jedi and the core Sith are so kind of diluted, and assuming if Rey dies and if Kylo dies, will the Force die? No, because I would have said yes up until the point that Phantom Menace existed, because Qui-Gon kind of retconned everything and said that the Force is a power that exists within all living things. So everyone has a Force connection. It just depends on how strong it is. So yeah, I believe it is absolutely possible if it were a deliberate act by a Force-sensitive being. But if you're just talking about time, I don't think so.
So say the person who knows a specific skill dies.
Yes.
Doesn't teach a single person how to use it.
Yes.
There's no record of it being taught.
Yes.
It will eventually sort of extinct.
Yeah, it would fizzle out
So-
because no one would learn how to use it. But then you've also got to consider, how did these people learn how to do it in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, do they learn how to do it from books? Is it like just accidental?
It's probably a bit of books, just like kind of like how Harry Potter tested the water with his powers, where he just, I mean, he didn't read a book to make the python or whatever's cage glass disappear. He just did it, so he knew that he can then do that and stuff like that. So it was probably a lot of the case, like in the Revan fan film that I showed you, Rescue Mission, where he was kind of tempting that Jedi to use the Force lightning. She never read up on how to do that. It was just because her emotions were tested to that point that she then lashed out and harnessed
Do you
it.
think the Force sort of shows them the way?
In a matter, but you've got to also, and you've driven me to this, Harrison. The Force, for me at least, is built purely off emotion when you look outside of the Jedi. So everything like Force lightning and Force choke, you need to be in a certain mindset in order to use it effectively. So, so there's no
like Force cough.
Yeah. So, I forgot my original point, but with the dark side, you need to they probably learned that because they were of that mindset. With the Jedi, it's a little bit different. You could argue that the Living Force showed them how to do it, and things like that. I mean, a lot of the basic things like moving. I know that Luke said that the Force isn't the case of moving stuff around, but you can do that with the Force.
Well, I mean, you can, so why not?
So I know it's not all about lifting rocks.
Ray does it.
But yeah, so they probably had a certain amount of teaching and a certain amount of help with it, but it was different with the Sith because a lot of their stuff was learnt by them personally because they reached that kind of emotional state. So I think it would be more likely that if Rey and Kylo were to die out and therefore the Force legacy ends with them and it's up to someone else to pick it up without any knowledge of the Jedi, they would have to go through an emotional stage in order to learn that they even had Force capabilities in the first place.
And would they even know it's called the Force?
Probably not. They would just be like, oh, okay, I'm kind of special.
Yeah, like a witch.
To quote Turnbull, I'm a special snowflake.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, the Force is something that I'm still learning a lot about, because obviously there is the clean split between the Jedi and the Sith, and which powers they are able to utilise. And it's like something that I really liked with Jedi, where Luke used Force Choke on the Gamorrean guard, or however you pronounce it.
Oh, Gamorrean.
Gamorrean guard, yeah, because he was using a dark side ability, and lots of people in the cinema apparently around that time were like, "Oh my gosh, has Luke kind of turned at this point? Because he's using all these dark side abilities in a dark robe and stuff like this. Has he turned? Has he given into everything that he went? Has he given into all the kind of conflict that he went through at the end of Empire?" And according to the again the book, which was an amazing book, Shadows of the Empire. I think it was Shadows of the Empire. He was walking like a tightrope between the dark side and the light. And if he had fallen to the dark side, then we don't know the kind of Luke that we could have got.
Could have got
La Luke.
Luke.
So going back to the last, I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah,
I know I went a kind of roundabout way of doing
Yeah,
it.
you went swings around about, you know.
But something that I wanted to bring up, and again, it was because I was watching The Last Jedi again. I don't know whether you remember, because you only watched it once, didn't you? When Luke first goes into his hut just before Chewie bursts through the door, you kind of get like a look around the hut, and you see a red shattered kyber crystal or synthetic crystal necklace, and then you also see a compass as well. Both red necklace less so, but the compass actually has a meaning. And it wasn't until Battlefront 2 came out that was actually kind of explained to us. The compass was retrieved from one of the trophy rooms or kind of hoards of the Emperor, and that was a map. That's how he found Ahch-To. So Palpatine was aware. I think he was aware of Ahch-To to a certain extent, and God knows how he would have used Ahch-To had he followed that map, because probably a lot of that was retrieved by his personal staff. Like, he probably didn't go out and find it himself, so he probably never even got to see half of that stuff, which is a shame, really, because I'd like to. I think that's something that might be fun. I mean, obviously we've got a lot of stuff that we've got to write up before this, but maybe it will be a good Light the Saber poster kind of idea of what Palpatine's galaxy would have been like had he succeeded, and a load of other people. How would the galaxy? What would have been the state of the galaxy had certain parties succeeded where they had failed, or certain parties have failed where they succeeded? One of my favourites was what would have happened had Anakin been taken back by Obi-Wan as opposed to left on Mustafar, and how he would have then founded Ahch-To with Yoda and Obi-Wan, and he would have been better reconstructed than he was by the efforts of the newly established Empire. And
Your new Empire.
And Palpatine was defeated, but he, I think there was a really cool scene that was depicted where he made clones explode, just like in showers of blood. But
why not? Force explosion, you know?
Exactly, and it's something that we've seen bits of. I think it was Force Unleashed 2, wasn't it? Where he uses that force power that disintegrates that stormtrooper.
Yeah.
Again, it's expanded universe stuff that we want to see in live action.
I mean, double-handed lightning, and they never go wrong.
Yeah, but I don't know if we'll ever see it again, which is a shame. We've got a lot of Star Wars to get through within these next few years alone. But whether or not it's going to keep the fandom, who knows? Because there's still going to be idiots like me that I'll continue to watch it, even if it goes down a really insane path.
Yeah.
But because not only do I run this podcast and kind of need to know stuff, but at the same time, it's Star Wars.
Exactly.
You commit to a fandom, it's very difficult to break out of it. Like all these people on the Star Wars pages that are like, Episode 8 has ruined Star Wars for me.
You just need to get over it.
You clearly don't care. You clearly don't care enough about the fan base to then write it all off because one film wasn't as good as what you expected it to be.
Yeah, it wasn't like a super seller at the box office, so it's ultimately not good.
I mean, am I wrong to say that if I don't like this new trilogy, I refuse its existence?
No.
I'll just be like, okay, so all the original canon exists in my mind. You know what? That's so much better. Revan exists, all that cool stuff. Because it still does. Those books still exist. It's not like Disney went around burning them. We still got them. We can still choose what story we want to take in.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like there are two universes now, and as Rebels has taught us, universe jump doesn't matter.
I just jumped back over the line you was already crossing.
So we could easily jump into this other universe and accept it as true canon. And I suggest that people that are really not liking The Last Jedi and not liking where this new trilogy are going kind of do the same. Take it with a pinch of salt. It's still Star Wars. By all means, go and see it. But don't act like it's destroyed your fandom, because it hasn't. Fandom still exists. We're all still here. But it's just different. It's different. It's so different. Like, lots of... Again, okay, so Force Awakens was exactly the same as A New Hope for many reasons, but it was also very different. Like, they've... a lot of the kind of political correctness issues that they're trying to address in We Never Saw in A New Hope, and the different way of writing dialogue and things like that. Like, most people can agree with me that though Star Wars original trilogy is a classic and is unflawed in so many ways, the acting could be a bit clunky and some of the words were a bit cheesy. Hopefully they're trying to fix this.
You know, fly casual.
Yeah, well, I think we love that. I don't think we hate that. But there's still a lot that is very, very, very different. So we've just got to accept all of this with a pinch of salt. I don't think it's something that we need to lose our heads over. Definitely
an ending point for a strong point there.
Yeah.
Enjoy what you like. Don't worry about what everyone else likes.
Yeah, there's always going to be stuff we hate or don't like. But that's just the way that it goes. This is someone else taking our fandom and being brave. I like to look at it as opposed to that these people are just going out and bludgeoning our fandom to death. They're actually being brave enough to go out and actually produce something. We are such a bloodthirsty fandom, as Star Wars 8 has taught us, that it must be the scariest thing in the world to go out and even attempt to make one of these films.
Definitely. Must be quite challenging to know what you're facing with a fandom.
Exactly, because the fandom is split. We can see this from Star Wars 8. There are people that love it and there are people that hate it. So you're never going to
win.
You're never going to win. But you can at least try, and we should have some kind of gratitude and also some admiring towards these people that have gone out and actually at least tried.
Yeah, I mean, they went with millions of pounds to go and do what they loved.
Exactly. Because a lot of these people are filmmakers that love what they do and put their heart and soul into it. And if it's something that we don't like, so fudge that. If it's something that we don't like, then we've all just got to move on.
Yeah, I mean, just don't worry about it.
But yeah,
what you like.
We will wrap up this episode because I'll lose my mind otherwise. So,
probably for the best.
Whether you are Jedi or Sith, Republic or CIS, First Order or Resistance,
or Boogalad.
Yeah. We hope you have a very good day, night, whatever you're doing. May the Force be with you. See you guys next week.